Let me call on two of the very liveliest colleagues on faculty we have at Osgood, who share many things in common and in life, but one that is a unique bond that is bringing them both up to the podium now. Two of Chief Justice McLachlin's former law clerks on our faculty, Professor Sonia Lawrence, Professor Ben Berger. Please take it away.
So Ben and I are both delighted to have the opportunity to welcome the Chief Justice to this bright new Osgood. We're both very fortunate to have the opportunity to work for her at the very moment when our professional lives were beginning. And we're just going to tell something about her that you might not know. I remember on the occasion of her swearing in as the Chief Justice, we discovered that when Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, laid the cornerstone of the Supreme Court building in 1939, her remarks included the line, "Perhaps it is not inappropriate that this task should be performed by a woman, for women's position in civil society has depended upon the growth of law." And I was so excited about finding this, and I thought it was so fitting for the swearing-in ceremony. And I remember Chief Justice McLachlin, as she then was for a couple of more days, smiling as she sent me down to the court archivist to ensure that it was all properly documented. And I thought that she was intrigued and amused by the coincidence and by the uniquely fitting nature of the quote. But now I wonder if she was just amused by all of us making such a fuss over what was, after all, just the latest in a long line of firsts for her. I interpret what she was thinking, and I do it knowing that it's a foolish game. Our Chief Justice is pretty plain spoken, and when she wanted to tell me something, she usually just told me. But I do my interpretation thinking about her life, the life in which there was no precedent for the path she followed. Before she was the first female Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, she was the gold medalist. She edited the Law Review. She got a master's in philosophy. She litigated in Vancouver. She taught at UBC. She was Chief Justice of the BC Supreme Court, and she was on the British Columbia Court of Appeal. And in all of these settings, she was the first, the only, or one of the few. She has remarked that she was an object of curiosity and scrutiny, and she has said publicly, "I had no role models." It is both remarkable and fitting that this pioneer woman from Pincher Creek now serves as a role model and an inspiration to a new generation of Canadian women.
Thank you, Sonia. I remember a conversation I had with the Chief Justice when I was telling her I had come back from a trip in which I had seen my first Mark Rothko painting, and I saw her eyes light up, and she spoke energetically, lively about Rothko and others that kind of took their cue from his work. And she remarked on how it's incredible how something so simple, just lines of color, could, with study, with patience, with reflection, reveal subtleties that you wouldn't otherwise see. And I noted at the time how passionately she spoke about it, how much it really seemed that it mattered to her. And in my time as her law clerk, I was most sort of impressed. Found most remarkable the vastness of the Chief Justice's interests, her passions outside of the law. Of course, with her studies in philosophy, she remained very interested in that, in the history of ideas. I learned how much she saw that the complexity of history really matters, and that engaging with history is a way of engaging with the weaknesses and the strengths of the human condition. But I also learned that she's a lover of the fine arts, of literature, of music, of art, and that she is someone really who takes the creative expressions of human experience extremely seriously. Now, as I watched as she engaged in her judicial work, I learned that this remarkable breadth of interest and knowledge in art, in history, in literature was not something that sat beside, apart from her life in the law, but really something that inspired it. And as a clerk, of course, I benefited immensely from her kindness, from her patience, from some advice about neckties. And as a country, we've been, of course, enriched by the wisdom, the compassion, the humility, and the appreciation for complexity that marks her as a jurist. And from her, I learned that these virtues of legal judgment really share a common source in that same set of ideas that produces a love for literature, for art, for music, namely a deep appreciation for those subtleties of the human story and a desire, an abiding desire to understand it better. And it's our honor to introduce to you one of our teachers and the Chief Justice of Canada, the Right Honorable Beverley McLachlin.
Distingués invités, mesdames, messieurs, c'est un plaisir d'être ici cet après-midi. I have to say I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed at the moment. When I came here, I did not realize that Sonia and Ben would be introducing me, and when they said they were, I was sure it would just be a little line from each of them. At the moment, I'm feeling quite overwhelmed. Don't believe a thing they said. But I can say that I am enormously proud of both of them. They were fabulous law clerks, and they have been fabulous professors. Ben was formerly at Victoria, where the students and the faculty alike just adored him. There's no other word. Sonia has been here for a number of years and has made very impressive achievements and contributed enormously not only to this community but the community outside. So they are, I think, emblematic of a long line of distinguished professors at this institution. And Sonia and Ben, I'm enormously proud of you. It is a day for celebrations. And first of all, of course, to celebrate this wonderful new, if I can say that, building. Over my years on the court, I have had several occasions to visit Osgoode Law School, and I have always been impressed. I was always impressed with the faculty, their erudition, their commitment. I was always impressed with the students, their liveliness, the multicultural background and insights they brought, and their dedication to what was to be their new profession. And I was always impressed with the building. It kept the snow out. But those corridors were dark, and walking into this new building today, which is full of sunlight and air and hope, one senses that the conversations will be even richer than no doubt they were before. In the classrooms, which I understand now have windows, small ones, and in the corridors. So bravo for all those who have made this possible. Second, I think it's a celebration of the law school and the legal community and the importance of legal education. Buildings reflect those who make them and use them, and those who make them and use them are reflective of the building. And together, this faculty and this building will go on to ever more important accomplishments. The third celebration, and the reason I'm actually standing up here at the moment, is to celebrate the Honorable Peter de Carteret Cory. The Robinette Medal is named after the award's first recipient, John J. Robinette, QC, who received the award in 1983. Other recipients include the Honorable Mr. Justice Roy McMurtry, 58, the Honorable Madam Justice Hilda M. McKinley, 66, Laura Legg, 48, and the Honorable Lincoln Alexander, 53, among others. The award is the highest honor given to alumni of the Osgoode Hall Law School and recognizes those individuals whose outstanding careers have brought distinction to the profession and the school. Peter Cory's career is both outstanding and ongoing, and I could not hope to do justice to his many accomplishments, which also make him a superbly deserving recipient of this honor. I will tell you that when I arrived at the Supreme Court in 1989, April 1989, Peter greeted me. He was my big brother, having arrived there 3 months earlier. And he gave me enormous support and help in the sometimes difficult adjustments and times in that rather difficult and very heavily loaded time for the court as I adjusted to my role. Not least of the comforts he provided was his weekly cookie run, as we called it, when he would come by and with his can of cookies, sit down opposite anyone who happened and chat with them for a while. He always brought good cheer, he always brought comfort, and he always left when he left your office, you always felt upbeat and happy. And Peter, thank you so much for that on a personal level. And the many other good times we had with you and Edie in Ottawa. Peter has remained very active. Everyone knows his enormous contribution to the law during his years on the court. I have not time today, nor need I, recount the compassion, the wisdom, and the scholarship that his judgments reflect. It is a lasting and enormously impressive contribution to the jurisprudence of this country. And he has been active since, and again, I cannot recount all the things he has done, but we all know that he brought enormous dedication and energy to his difficult task as Commissioner to the governments of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland to investigate 6 controversial murder cases involving alleged collusion between security forces in Northern Ireland and the Irish Republican Army. In due course, he brought a report, and he saw to it that that report was made public and was listened to. And it was an enormous contribution not only to the United Kingdom and Ireland, but I think to Canada and the pride that we have in our ability sometimes to make a difference throughout the world through people like Peter Cory. The second thing, of course, I'm going to mention is that he served as the 11th Chancellor of York University from 2004 to 2008 and has served subsequently as an honorary member of the Board of Governors. Peter is someone who has never stopped giving. I recently read somewhere that the essence of morality is compassion and a commitment to avoid or prevent unnecessary suffering in others. And I thought that was a pretty good definition of morality, and I actually thought of Peter Cory because that's what he stands for. This is a man of the highest morality in that highest of senses. Chief Justice Lemaire used to tell an anecdote. It was his view that when he went to heaven, he wanted to be treated like Peter Cory's dog. But Peter is a very sweet and loving man, but he has carried that to the highest levels of compassion and principle. Let me then simply say that for all these reasons and many more, Peter, I now present to you the Robinette Medal. I think I was supposed to say that there's going to be a film before that, but... yeah,
so here's the medal. I think we'll present the medal and then we'll see the film, but let's have a round of applause for Peter Cory. Can you do a picture?
Justice Cory has a very regal presence about him. prodigious hard worker.
One of the kindest men one might find, and he has developed a role as a judge that is enviable.
In the service, I was called as a witness on a military tribunal process. There was a conviction, and I still think it was unfair. I still think he was wrongfully convicted, and I must say that's really what got me going and taking up law.
The Honourable Peter Cory, without doubt, is one of the most eminent alumni of Osgoode Hall Law School and its whole distinguished history.
I remember my first day of law school. Dean Falconbridge was lecturing on contracts, and the clarity of his lecture was really quite inspiring. To have that sort of presentation was just wonderful.
Well, Peter Cory presents as a very pleasant, kind, considerate person, which he genuinely is. I mean, that's nothing, it's not a put on. But beneath all that, he's a very determined, competitive person who really, if he sets his mind on achieving something, he works at it relentlessly.
He has wonderful personal qualities, and among them are his respect for people and his empathy for people, which is, when you combine that with his passion for fairness, he was an excellent person to appoint to the Supreme Court of Canada, as it was addressing its important jurisdiction under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
He was a dream boss. He involved us in every aspect of his job, involved us in the issues that he was concerned about, involved us in the job that he did, and it really felt like a group effort as opposed to a boss giving instructions to one of his employees.
When he retired from the court, we nominated him to serve as Chancellor of York University, which he did with great distinction.
And I think he was very proud about how Osgoode has developed into being a school which is much larger, much more diverse, and has really shown in its curriculum and in its programs a real commitment to access to justice and the administration of justice.
There has to be that sense of fairness and integrity and that courage to stand up for someone who is being perhaps unfairly pursued. That you will be a fair judge, because that's the greatest attribute of any judicial officer.
For me, he is the perfect lawyer and the perfect judge. He was excellent as an advocate, excellent as a judge, certainly no pushover, but he dealt with every issue, with every person with respect and with civility and professionalism. And I would hold him up as a model for litigators today.